Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Next in Time podcast. I'm your host, ST Tangarala, and today our guest is none other than Mark Lyda. So if you want to know more about Mark, he provides high quality legal services to startups and small businesses and moderate income clients. And his goal is to provide long-term client relationships and is a highly trusted advisor to his clients. And he is looking to make a massive impact in the space of legal in the legal field along with startups. So Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I presume because I saw on your LinkedIn that you're originally from Colorado, right?
Yep, I'm originally from Colorado and I'm currently in Colorado as well.
Yeah, by the background of it, it looks very nice.
Yeah, it's snowing right now, actually.
Snowing,
It's one of our first
snowing in
snows of the year.
November.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the snow?
I'm used to it. I remember as a kid, it seemed like the first snow was always on Halloween because you'd be really excited to have your costume and you'd have to cover it up with the big parka.
Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, but how? So what is it? How does it like to really be the go-to legal person for these startups in a way?
Yeah, so my interest in startups is twofold. One is as a lawyer whose firm helps startups, and then the other is as a startup founder myself. So I founded this firm, but then that's been 8 years since this firm started, and over the past year or so, we've been developing our own internal technology. Tools for making our law firm run better, tools for helping our lawyers, be their best. And so that is something that's in the works as being, an independent or at least a second startup of mine is the technology side. So I'm interested in legal tech. I'm working on legal tech right now as a founder, but then we also serve startups all the time. That is really interesting and rewarding because the problem that we saw that, I was at a large firm and it was a really good learning experience and everything, but we were really only representing Fortune 100 clients and things like that. So I went out on my own, I hung up my own shingle, as they say, to serve smaller businesses and startup businesses and really get to know my clients. And that's, for me personally, that's a lot more rewarding type of endeavor. And it's an interesting business challenge to figure out how to make a profitable law firm around clients who pay less than the Fortune 100 clients.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what do you see the difference between serving Fortune 100 clients and small businesses and startups? I know there's like a huge disparity in terms of, the amount of money that they spend on legal stuff, but like, what do you feel like are the differences in terms of working with them?
It would feel like working with a huge corporation. You'd have a point of contact who is sort of a cog in the machine of their company. And, I think people often, when they think of bureaucracy, they think of the government, but a lot of huge corporations are extremely bureaucratic as well. And so it's just a completely different experience in every imaginable facet. And it's there's a much more emotional involvement between a founder and their company than there is between somebody who's, one of 100 people in the legal department and their company. And so it's this feeling of, even though the companies are smaller, it's a feeling of greater responsibility to be a lawyer representing small companies sometimes because, their baby's welfare is in your hand because founders think of their company as their baby.
Yeah, it's the difference is like people treat startups as like they're trying to build something from scratch, while corporations are more like, okay, we've already have something established under our belt that is consistently giving us income. So we don't have to worry about though. If let's just say if we had to spend so much money on legal stuff, then it wouldn't affect us on the bottom line. But startups is like a totally different ballgame altogether in a way because they got to put in all they have a lot to lose in a way if they had to spend money on lawyers.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And as a lawyer, it does sometimes you want your clients to make rational economic decisions, and smaller companies can sometimes be somewhat more emotional, but they also are operating on such a razor thin margin sometimes that they realize they can't afford to be emotional in certain circumstances or can't afford to be irrational. So it's really fun to strategize with them because it's always a multifaceted type of representation because you are thinking about whatever legal needs they have, but you're also helping them strategize for how can we meet those legal needs in the way that really serves the overall bigger picture of your business. So I've really loved that. And it's been this whole kind of like meta experience for me because I've been representing these companies while building my own company, the law firm itself. And then now with a foray into tech, it's it all feeds on itself because I've learned how to run my business better from watching how my clients run their businesses. And I think I represent the clients better and can help them and serve their business better because of my experiences in running my own business. So it feeds on itself.
As they say, it's wiser to learn from other people's mistakes than it is to, make mistakes and learn from it.
Yeah, that's funny. I haven't heard it put like that, but I'm the youngest of four, so that's definitely my instinct because of what I grew up doing.
Right. So yeah, I just wanted to know more about Mark himself. Like, we started off, you're a lawyer, you're like very passionate about startups, but tell me tell me about the background of where Mark comes from and what made Mark who he is.
Well, I guess it all started at St. Luke's Presbyterian Hospital, neonatal unit. Well, I think no, I'm just kidding. I won't go that
No,
in depth.
It was a nice sarcastic way of presenting it.
Yeah. How much time do you have? No, I think that I do think that I view the law as I can't remember ever deciding to become a lawyer, but what I do remember is that as a little kid, as the youngest of four, when they were teenagers and I was around 5 years old, I set up a little sign in the living room and put on a suit, and the sign said "The Problem Solver," and I tried to collect pennies to help solve people's problems, which I don't think I did a very good job of as a 5-year-old, but it's pretty much the same attitude that I then bring into the law. So I think it was just kind of a natural progression. I can't really remember ever deciding to be a lawyer or anything like that. But what I do know is that I went into the law to try to help people. I think that's why the vast majority of people go to law school. And I think that it's really easy when you go to law school to get caught up in the rat race. And I think the same is true in the startup community where, startups are so often thinking about, what everybody else is accomplishing. They see news of huge seed rounds and things like that, even pre-seed rounds. And they see gaudy numbers being raised by investors and they're thinking, oh, I should chase after that. And it's easy to lose sight of what's really important in building your business. And the same is true in the law, where you go into law school trying to help people, and then you just kind of get swept up in the competitive aspect of what everybody's going for. Everybody's trying to get a clerkship and then land a job at a large firm representing these big companies. And so I certainly, that's exactly what I did. So I guess I got swept up in it as well, but those are rewarding experiences too.
I was saying you're just following the Joneses, just following what they did, and then you realize like it was just not the right thing for you.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'd do it differently if I had it to do over again, but like having those experiences under my belt now, I do realize that that's not what's important in the long run. So yeah, I guess that's another example of, my experience in the law informing my experience in business, both on my own and in helping clients. Because it's really just all, it's like type A people in a insular type of rat race culture, it's very similar dynamics.
So I also see like you're also part of the U.S. Air Force Reserve. So tell me more about that. Like, just being in the Air Force kind of drives your like mentality to be more like I gotta get something going in a way.
I don't know. I joined pretty late relative to other people. A lot of people join out of high school or something like that. I only joined after becoming a practicing attorney through this program they have where they supplement the active duty ranks with practicing attorneys to bring in more seasoned legal experience. And so in many ways I was, my frontal cortex had finished its development by the time I joined. And so that
happens usually around 25 plus, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I guess that was kind of formed. But that being said, I mean, I have learned an incredible amount from that experience, met some of the best people I've ever met. And they're definitely, I don't know that it's changed my outlook on life, but it has given me a lot of tools for kind of being the best I can be. And a lot of the things that I've seen the leaders do within the Air Force are things that I've brought into my own firm.
All right, cool. So basically you were a law clerk, then you joined the reserve. Now you're a founder of Lyda Group, right? That's your
I'm
trying to make sure your last name's pronounced Lyda, right? Not Lyda.
Yeah.
Okay, so you founded Lyda Group. It's been going on for 8 years now, 8+ years. And tell me more about how you started it and what made you want to like start this whole thing. I think you already said you wanted to serve startups, and like Lyda Group is more like you want to be your own boss kind of thing.
Yeah, I wanted to have some sort of public interest element to my legal practice. And I found that through, I kind of found the right balance in having a for-profit law firm that is mission oriented. Our mission is to increase access to high quality legal services because I think that there are really good, really expensive lawyers. And there are also some inexpensive lawyers, but what we want is for the Venn diagram of inexpensive lawyers and good lawyers to cross over more, so that middle section is a little larger. Just the idea of building something myself, and then eventually with a great team, really appealed to me. And the kind of like self-determination of striking out on my own, and and just having that mission as the driver for the firm is what really drove us. So I founded a Lyda law firm in September 2014. We now call it the Lyda Group because it encompasses both the Lyda law firm and Lyda Strategies, which does some lobbying and advocacy for some nonprofits and trade groups and things like that. So they have to be separate legal entities, Strategies and the law firm. So that's why we call it Lyda Group.
So which of the divisions specializes in, let's say, startups and small businesses?
So that's Lyda law firm. We represent, we do represent some and have represented some small businesses and small business trade groups on the lobbying side, but really the vast majority of our business is all about the law firm, and it's mostly the law firm that represents startups and small businesses. And we're, the really challenging thing for us is that, there are a lot of headwinds in starting a law firm. Like you can't take investment money, and you can't, be a national business like any other business. You can't just sell your goods or services
It's more. I think
across the country.
yeah, but you're only licensed to practice in the state you're in,
Yeah,
right? It's not like
yeah,
I keep getting mixed up whether if it's some. I know they for real estate agents out there, you got to be licensed in your state to provide that. And I thought
yeah.
lawyers, I thought lawyers were originally more meant for like they service their particular firms, not like a particular state. Maybe I'm still kind of ignorant about the world of legal stuff. So
Yeah, our licensure is by state, just like the realtor. So you just can't practice. There are certain limited things you can help a local client do out of state, but by and large, you just have to practice in your own state. So it makes it a slower process to grow the business. The vision for our firm is to be a full service firm for small businesses and we want to be a national full service firm for small businesses. There are a bunch of full service national firms for huge corporations, but it's just really difficult to grow national as a small law firm. If you look at, it's kind of like the auto industry in the sense that there hadn't been before Tesla, like an American startup that was successful in the auto industry since I think Chrysler in the 20s. And the same is true when you look at the top law firms. They've gone through various mergers and so forth, but by and large, they're all over 100 years old. And it's difficult to grow, but it's such a fun puzzle and such a fun challenge to try to have a different strategy, kind of a down market strategy, and try to grow nationally. So we've gradually been doing that. And now we're in 6 states and we're going roughly by population. So we can now represent about a third of America's population because we're in Colorado, where we started, but also California, Texas, Florida, Washington State, and Tennessee.
Oh, it's practically startup hubs for all of them, for all the other states. I mean, for Colorado, yes,
Yeah.
California, Texas, Florida, and Washington.
Right.
Yeah, Tennessee is up and coming. I think it's basically the entire country will, before it used to be like the startup hub used to be the Bay Area, Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's become more like, okay, anywhere you want to go, you can innovate, you can build a startup. Since now that the internet has basically democratized the whole process.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool. And we like being in all of those places, and, we're hoping to grow within those places, but also grow to more states as well.
So tell me about the typical day of how you work with startups as a lawyer.
Well,
maybe not the day in the life of, those videos. If you see on YouTube, you see those day in the life of, as a software engineer or some other profession.
Yeah.
What would be your day-to-day activities for startups? That's what I meant.
Yeah. We have a YouTube channel for the Lyda law firm, and we do legal explainer videos. It's mostly me, honestly, doing the legal explainer videos within our firm. But I've thought about doing a day in the life, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be so boring to watch. I don't know. I mean, they do it for engineers, sometimes very entertainingly. So maybe I just need to be more creative about it. But, it's just sitting at a desk like any other job, talking on the phone a little bit, things like that. It is really intellectually entertaining because you're pulled in a bunch of different directions and you have to use different parts of your brain. You have to learn your client's business a little bit, or sometimes a lot, in some great depth. So we work with different types of businesses. Some are, the typical scalable startup that's dealing with term sheets and things like that. And some are mom and pop businesses that we represent. And so we have to learn the ins and outs of, any random part of the small business economy, and deal with employee issues, deal with disputes, deal with contracts, help them with their strategy and how they're gonna choose their entities and get all set up in forming their companies or dissolving or selling their companies. So it's it requires some agility, and that's fun. I don't think it would make a good YouTube video, but I'm going to keep putting some thought into how I could make that entertaining. I don't know.
Maybe just would be like, okay, I wake up at 6 in the morning, get ready, and then go to the law office, make some content, and then then work, then call startups, and then come home, eat dinner, and go to sleep, kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. That's about it.
That's basically every day in the life for right now. But it's like it's just funny to watch sometimes. And but yeah. Anyway, so
I will
what?
say, actually, if you don't mind, I do have a really, actually, I try to keep myself to a pretty regimented schedule. And I have a 1 hour from 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning every day that I just practice tasks, just Spanish and coding. And I do a wellness check-in and like 15 minutes of social media. So that is the one thing I keep really regimented, is my daily power hour in the morning.
Got it. So why? So tell me, like, what do you feel like are some of the challenges that startups are facing with their legal issues?
Well, I mean, it really runs the gamut. I'm right now doing a playlist on sort of the legal guide for these scalable tech startups, because we have a YouTube playlist for our small businesses in general, but there are a lot of unique issues that scalable startups face that the typical small businesses you'll see, like brick and mortar stores, restaurants, and things like that, don't face. It really is distinct in a lot of ways. So, the formation issues are different, like figuring out how to form your business, what type of entity, corporation, LLC, things like that, where to form, and why. The conventional wisdom is what it is. Most scalable tech startups are C corps in Delaware, and that doesn't make a lot of sense to people, but it's basically flows from the fact that that's what investors want for various reasons. And so, there are times where the conventional wisdom, it does make sense to follow the herd, depending on different companies' situations. And then there's just a entirely different glossary, totally different terminology that small businesses need to that startups need to learn that a typical small business might not need to. And there are some pitfalls involving, taxes and valuation of their shares and things like that. So it really is more complex than a typical small business.
So you're involved. Is it the investors or the lawyers involved with figuring out the valuation for the startup?
Yeah, there are professionals who do valuations that are like, supportable for tax purposes and things like that. But really, a valuation for a startup just comes down to a willing buyer and a willing seller. That's what the value is. Market value is determined just by what people are willing to do. What investors are willing to give to a startup, and what price founders put on the equity in their startup. So yeah, lawyers sprinkle the magic legal dust on the documents, but ultimately the valuation comes down to kind of just those very personal determinations by the founder and the investor.
Right. And so in terms of like, okay, for example, just out of curiosity, why is it your law firm takes more time to grow, but a startup takes less time for it to grow in a way?
The two things are investment money. That's how you scale as a startup, is you get funded. You cannot be funded as a law firm, period, because non-lawyers cannot own portions of law firms. So you can't give equity. You can get a loan, or you can bootstrap. That's just about it as a law firm. So that's the number one reason. you can't get funded as a law firm. You got to get a loan or you got to bootstrap. Number two reason I'd say is that it's limited by state. Maybe that's one. I don't know which reason is most important, but those are two major differences between a law firm and a startup.
And you said now that you're looking to work towards building a startup for lawyers, right? Or is it what was
Yeah.
tell me about that right now, what you're building?
Yeah. So, the legal industry is always behind in terms of technology. We're late adopters. And that makes things really interesting because it's there's a lot of blue ocean within the legal industry when it comes to technology that we could use to make our profession better, and that we could use to make our jobs easier, and that we could use to help better serve clients. And I'm fortunate to basically have this laboratory for experimentation where we can build and then try out different products to see what makes our law firm run better. So, one space I have been experimenting in right now is in wellness for lawyers, because obviously there are a lot of existing wellness apps and things like that, but nothing specific to lawyers. And so we've been working with how we can integrate wellness practices and technology into a lawyer's actual practice of law. Reason being that by and large, we either, lead or are among the leading professions for all negative indicators of wellness, depression, anxiety, suicide rate, substance use, all that stuff.
Yeah, lawyers have a pretty stressful, one of the most stressful positions in the world, because they have to deal with a lot of different people in a way. They have to deal with their clients, they got to deal with the judges, they got to deal with let's just say if they're a defendant, they got to deal with the prosecutor's claims, and then if they're the prosecutor, they got to deal with the defendant's claims. They got a lot. And also they got to handle it. They got to deal with the jury. It's like, I think is like dealing with all these different facets of let's say, for example, a court trial. That kind of stress, is that a major stressor, or?
Yeah, and I think another unique stressor of being a lawyer is that there's somebody working against you to try to make you fail at your job, not just a business competitor, but somebody directly across the table from you, engaged in a zero-sum game. It's like if you were doing surgery and there were an opposing surgeon in the OR trying to, mess with your scalpel.
So what stage are you at with this company? Are you still kind of like figuring things out, or?
Yeah, we're we have a couple of prototypes that we're testing internally. That's where we are right now. I haven't been trying to raise any money or anything like that. I'm just trying to find essentially product market fit within my firm, and at that point I'm going to take it to market.
Make it just like do kind of bootstrap your way out.
Yeah, I'm used to bootstrapping, and that's okay. I'm a self-taught coder, and I've used some low code or no code type tools. But certainly the adventure of the legal tech gig will be learning to scale faster when it's been such a slog with the law firm. It's it's a different challenge.
And so why do you feel like this is necessary for these lawyers? Like, why, do you feel that I know wellness is important, but do you feel that there are other factors as to why they need let's say that you're trying to show this product to the market? Do you feel like they need some sort of help in any way?
Well, what I know is that prioritizing wellness has been a huge differentiator for our law firm. It is what makes our turnover really low, and it is what helps us recruit great lawyers to our law firm. It's something that larger firms are starting to recognize, but no one has really cracked the nut on how to address this really huge problem. There are business rationales for addressing it. There are also just kind of like human rationales for wanting to address it, but it will make better lawyers. It will keep people in the legal profession. It will make happier lawyers. It will keep people serving clients longer and better and more consistently. So I think it's a worthy cause to address. really the overarching idea of my legal technology company is to help law firms run better and serve their clients better. I'm incredibly passionate about that. And I think that it's necessary to have happy, healthy lawyers in order to achieve that stuff.
Sounds good. And so I think we're also running low on time, but let's get to know like what would you say your advice would be for other founders, especially as a lawyer? What would you advise in terms of legal like practices, what to do with their startups and say how you can help how you can take advantage of legal like services from you to be able to grow your startup?
I would say that there are, it's really tough because it's hard to tell what's a good product and what's necessary. That's one of the reasons the legal profession is so broken, is because it's all opaque and confusing for consumers. I do recommend Clerky, which is a really good startup. It's fun. It was founded by lawyers who are also engineers to help scalable startups with their initial founding documents and things like that. I would say be judicious about your use of lawyers. If you get funded, that's great. Read the bills, communicate with your lawyers, do what you can do to make it more efficient. Because if you just do your homework and staying organized and things like that, it'll save you a lot in legal fees. You don't want to pay exorbitant hourly rates for people to do clerical work that you could do yourself. And I'd say, just make sure that you find a lawyer who is willing to be strategic about helping you with your business and creating a long-term relationship.
All right, cool, Mark. Thank you so much for coming on the Next in Time podcast, and looking forward to seeing your business like flourish and your startup in a much growth shape, let's say.
Thanks a lot, SD. Thanks for having me on.